the next one on the agenda.
Yeah.
Clippers, Dallas. Clippers are going into Dallas down 0-2. And you referenced the panic button earlier where I asked you after game one, should they be at the panic button? You said, no, it's only one game. How are you feeling now?
Oh, you saw my tweet. You saw my tweet. I sent you a GIF of the panic button being hit repeatedly. No, they should be in panic mode according to Paul George. They're not, which good on them. But this was bad. This was really bad because you know what? When we spoke the last time around, we started talking about Kawhi Leonard needing to come out and get a tremendous first quarter and go for 40. What happened? What happened? That exact thing happened. We said they should switch a little bit less, that should double significantly less on Luca. That also happened, Bryan. And you know what? They still walked away with an L. Because Luca is just that good, and Tim Hardaway is just that good at punishing them, the Clippers that is, for not paying enough attention to him because they're so keyed in on Luca and his passing options. I mean, this is a clinic of basketball IQ from the Dallas perspective. And I will say this. Both of these games were winnable for the Clippers if they had just played a little bit more disciplined defense. And I think I realized something watching game 2. The Clippers don't have a plan for when they double Luca. And that's where I think they come up short. Mm-hmm. Like, if you double Luca, you need to know exactly what you are going to do in terms of rotations on the back line. You have to understand where you double from, what that means. Everybody has to be on a defensive string. And they're just not, Bryan. Like, it's, hey, I'm gonna double off of Tim Hardaway Jr., who just cashed in his 5th three a couple of moments ago. Let me just run away from him, and nobody else steps up to guard him. Boom, easy pass. There goes the 3-point. I mean, boom goes the dynamite. That's where we are. I'm completely baffled at what the hell Tyronn Lue is even doing right now from an X's and O's perspective. I do not get it.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that because especially, they cut the lead to 4 with a minute and a half left, and you're thinking, okay, they've got the momentum, right? They cut a double-digit lead down to 4. They still have plenty of time on the clock. They throw a double at Luca. Tim Hardaway, as you said, is just wide ass open. Tim Hardaway Jr., who burned them in the first game, who had already hit 5 threes in this game. It's just inexcusable. You're right. It's like they just don't seem... I don't know if it's a game plan issue. Like Ty Lue kind of alluded to the fact that they just didn't execute their game plan like they wanted to. Right. If it's just communication breakdowns, between personnel on the court. And maybe this is again a time where all of their injuries throughout the regular season have limited their chemistry, especially defensively. But it's really bad. And, they got... Kristaps had a bad game in game 1. He was, 20 points on 8 of 12 shooting in game 2. He stepped up as well. So... Well,
I don't disagree that he did, but it was really one of those very, very... You didn't feel like he had 20, if you catch my drift. It felt like he finished the game with 12. It wasn't allowed 20. So I understand what you're saying, and he was productive, but I do think that's the next step. That's him getting implemented a little bit more and not having to settle for scraps.
Right. Well, that's what's scary is that, in theory, we've seen the version of Kristaps who can be like far more dominant than what he's been in this series. And the Mavericks have gotten 2 wins even without that.
Yeah.
And now they're going home. The Clippers are feeling a ton of pressure down 0-2. Their supporting cast has just not played super well. Kawhi and Paul George, PG went 1 of 7 from 3, but he had 28 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, played 40 minutes.
He was fine.
Yeah, this is not a playoff P revival again. They just don't seem to have the personnel to match up well with Luca. Luca, again, is still getting switched on to Zubac at times. Yeah. We said it last episode, we'll say it again. That should never happen. You have Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Stick to Luca like glue with one of those 2 guys at all times and live with the results. But Oh man, I'll say this much.
Mm-hmm.
Because of how a year ago, we're looking at the 2021 free agent class and we're thinking this could be historic. Giannis, LeBron, Paul George, Kawhi, Gobert, Drew Holiday, like Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, so many big names. Almost all of those guys are off the market already, with the exception of Lowry and DeRozan. And Kawhi. And now, I'm not saying that Kawhi will definitely leave the Clippers if they lose this series. But if you're Kawhi, you at least have to... They've wasted 2 years of your prime now. And you just don't know how much more you're going to have, especially with your knee. We don't know the status of it moving forward and if it's a concern. But, it wouldn't surprise me if it is and they're just keeping that hush-hush.
Yeah.
You got to at least start looking around this summer. And that's going to spice things up significantly, just for the NBA at large. So...
Well, that depends, Brian. If I'm Kawhi Leonard, do I have the permission from Uncle Dennis to look around first?
Good point. Hopefully, because it really could. That could be like the jet fuel that we need in this otherwise kind of lame free agent class. And there are like the Mavericks are sitting out there, and they could create $35 million in space.
Now you're talking like that. Now you're speaking my language there, Brian, because that's what I want. I think if you look at the Clippers, what they need, right? One thing is that they need guard play.
Yeah.
But they need something else we haven't even touched on. They need leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Who right there on that roster right now is a leader?
I mean, they said last year that it was all Doc Rivers' fault, and I'm seeing it was perhaps not all Doc Rivers' fault.
Right. So again, who's there? Like when Kawhi was in Toronto, who was the leader there? Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry was the leader.
Yep.
Who is that guy right now? Rajon Rondo? No. Reggie Jackson? Mm-mm. Patrick Beverly? Nope. Marcus Morris? No. And you know what Luca is? Strangely enough, a leader. Yeah. 22 years old and a natural-born leader. Maybe, just maybe, getting Kawhi onto the Dallas Mavericks would extend his window for a championship for at least another 5 years. And it might play straight into his hand because all of the attention that goes to Luca. Could you imagine Kawhi just enjoying that, playing under the radar?
No.
Taking spot-up threes, taking open drives.
Like, I don't know which one of those two would be the number one or the number two, but that's immediately right up there with LeBron and AD and KD and Harden as the best 1-2 punch in the league.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'd rank them, those three duos, honestly.
And here's the kicker. If you do that, maybe just because they have such a good relationship, maybe you get a Tim Hardaway back on a much cheaper contract just for a single year. Just like, come get a ring, then you can go into free agency afterwards. Like maybe he goes, you know what? I'm down with that. I earned $72 million because the Knicks signed me to that deal. I can take a year where I just go for the ring. Sure. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We'll speculate about Kawhi's future at a later date if they end up losing this series, but that is the perspective now. And I think it's the perspective the Clippers fans have to take while watching this as well. Is like when you acquire Paul George and Kawhi Leonard in that deal 2 years ago, I know Paul George said last year was not championship or bust. This year sure as hell is. Because even though Paul George
was last year too.
Right. I get it. Pandemic, bubble, weird season, whatever.
Yeah.
Paul George is signed to a contract extension, so the Clippers are not, they won't be like this year's Detroit Pistons if Kawhi leaves.
Right.
But they also won't be, they'll be a play-in team next year if Kawhi leaves. So this is championship or bust. You're down 0-2 going into Dallas. I mean, the pressure just might completely crack them, and I'm excited to see how they handle it.
This would be just such a weird career turn for Kawhi when you then look over his past 5 years.
Yeah.
Like getting into a year-long fight with the Spurs, going to Toronto, winning the championship in the 1 year that he's there, then going to a Clippers team that everyone thought would win the ring, completely not bottom out. They didn't bottom out, but they would just fail to live up to expectations for 2 years, and then he would go somewhere else in 2021. That would be one of the weirdest 5-year stretches of any tier 1 superstar I can remember.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to see what happens in this. I think if you're talking about impact on the NBA at large moving forward, no series has bigger potential implications than what happens in Dallas Clippers.
But can we stay with Luca just a little bit before we move on?
Yeah.
I mean, we have to talk about him.
He's been sensational.
He's 22. I mean, I understand. He's been in the league for 3 years. We're already accustomed to this level of execution from him. Mm-hmm. But even when we take everything into account, that he used to be a professional in Spain with Real Madrid, came over extremely seasoned, came over extremely ready, now is in his 3rd year in the NBA. Let's not lose sight of the fact that this guy is only 22 years old, and he plays like he's been in the NBA playoffs and has 150 games worth of playoff experience under him. He is did you see the way that he would maneuver what the hell was it? I think he maneuvered a high screen and roll, came into the lane, and I think hit a layup. And then when he ran back on defense, he was smirking, to that and it wasn't one of those, oh, I'm glad it went in. It was one of those, oh, I got them kind of smirks, and then he hit, man. I'm a bad man. And then he hit the 1-footer 3-pointer. And that wasn't a smirk afterward. That was a full-on grin. Y'all can't stop me even regardless of what you do. And this is what this is the most scary thing to me if I'm looking at Luka Doncic from an outside perspective. You could make the argument, Bryan, that the Los Angeles Clippers, that is the one team in the NBA most geared up to stop him from a personnel perspective. Yeah. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Nicholas Batum, and Marcus Morris. Those are 4 wing defenders that you can rotate onto him. They even have Patrick Beverley at the guard you can switch up to as well. So if that unit cannot stop Luka Doncic, who the hell can?
You're going to call me a homer, but Ben Simmons is the one guy who I've seen successfully defend Luka.
That's fair, actually. That is a very, very good answer. I think I would buy stock into that. That is absolutely fair. But look, that is one guy.
I know.
If 4 guys, 2 of which, one of whom have won a I think 2? Was it 1 or 2 DPOY awards? Kawhi? I don't know. It's 1. Yeah, but I know, but is it 1 or 2? It doesn't matter. 2. He's 1. 2. Okay, 2. Yeah. And then you had a DPOY finalist a couple years ago in Paul George when he was in OKC. So you have 2 DPOY caliber players, and you can't stop Luka. I would rather take my chances with 1 DPOY candidate in Ben Simmons, and then those 2. But I hear you. I mean, that if there's anyone out there who can, it's probably Ben. But that's it. I feel like even Thibault would get.
Oh yeah.
Crushed. Sorry, but
well, no. I mean, Ben has the right combination of size and athleticism, and I think that might be another subplot for Kawhi. And again, goes back to his knee. Is he still the all-world caliber defender that he was a couple of years ago, or is Luka just a uniquely bad matchup for him?
Both.
Yeah.
Or how do we answer that on Twitter? We just say yes, right?
right.
Yes.
Going into the series, we said the key for the Mavericks to win, you're going into a series against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Luka Doncic needs to be the best player. Through 2 games, he has been. We'll see if he can keep it up.
Yeah, and it hasn't even been close. And just to leave you on this note, if you bring in Ben Simmons against Luka in a 7-game series, I'm not convinced Luka doesn't figure him out.
Yeah, I'm not either. I wouldn't bet against Luka at all right now.
Yeah.